Here is why most students fail anatomy. It is not because anatomy is too difficult. It is because most students study anatomy the wrong way. After 10 years of teaching anatomy, I noticed something surprising. The students who studied the most were not the students who performed the best. The difference was not effort. The difference is how they studied. In this video, I'm going to show you what neuroscience says about memory, why most students forget what they read, and the one study technique that separates the top students from everyone else. Imagine this. You want to build your muscle, so you go to the gym. But instead of lifting weights, you watch other people lift weights. You read about exercise. You watch workout videos. You even go to the gym and spend about 5 hours, but you never touch the weights. That is exactly how most students study anatomy. Most students believe that reading equals learning, so they read and read. And while they are reading, everything feels familiar. It feels like they understand, like they are making progress. But what they are feeling is not learning. It is something called the illusion of competence. From neuroscience, we know that the brain does not build long-term memory by reading. The brain builds memory by retrieval. In simple terms, not when information enters your brain, but when information comes out of your brain. Here is something very important that most students do not know. Forgetting is not a failure of learning. Forgetting is part of learning. Your brain is designed to forget information that it thinks is not important. So when you read and you forget it, your brain is basically asking, is this information important enough to keep? And the way you tell your brain to keep it is by trying to remember. And this explains something most students experience. You read something today, and 2 days later, you can barely remember it. Not because you are not intelligent, but because your brain is designed to forget unused information. Research shows that when you read information only once, you forget a large percentage of it within a short time. So, what you are experiencing is not a failure. It is your brain working exactly as it is designed to work. But here is the key point. This is not about your memory. It's about the way you are using it. Because reading alone does not tell your brain to keep the information. If you understand this, it will change completely how you study. Because there is a very specific way to use forgetting to actually build long-term memory. And most students never learn how to do this. I will show you exactly how to do it in a moment. Before I show you the method, let me tell you a fascinating story. Because this story I'm about to tell you changed how I think about memory and learning. There was a man named Kim Peek. Kim Peek could read a book in an hour. But that's not the amazing part. He could memorize the entire book and remember everything he read. He was said to have memorized over 12,000 books. If you asked him, what happened on March 3rd, 1874? And he would tell you the exact day of the week, the weather on that day, and world major events of that day. His memory was so incredible that the movie Rain Man was inspired by him. But here is the surprising thing. Despite his incredible memory, he could not manage daily life on his own. He lived most of his life with his father. Why? Memory is not mastery. And that is what most students do. They think that by memorizing anatomy, they can master it. But it's a mistake most students make. Anatomy is not a subject you memorize. Anatomy is a subject you understand, you organize, and then you apply. So, if memory alone is not enough, the question then becomes, what should anatomy students be doing instead? Let me show you the study method I teach my students. The students who master anatomy are the students who test themselves regularly. A common skill they have is the ability to ask questions and quiz themselves. And if you understand what I'm about to explain next, you will never learn anatomy the same way again. I am going to give you 5 principles to study anatomy. And the last one is the most powerful, and it is what most top students use. Principle number 1, deep work. Study anatomy in deep, focused blocks, not with your phone, not with notifications, and not while chatting. Anatomy requires deep work, and students who excel have consistent times they have blocked out for learning. So, block out consistent and specific times where you have deep, focused work. It doesn't have to be 5 hours or 6 hours on a stretch. In fact, learning for 5 hours is just a waste of time because after about 1 hour, your brain loses focus. Break your study time into blocks where you do deep, focused learning. So 1 hour, it could even be 30 minutes or 45 minutes. So you do deep learning during those time blocks. And then you can take a break. Principle number 2, write down questions, not the notes. Most students, when they are studying, rewrite the notes. You are just rewriting the textbook, and this is passive and unproductive. Instead, whilst you are reading, write down questions. You see, this process is forcing your brain to analyze what you're reading, actively engage the material. So instead of rewriting the notes, as you are reading, write down questions. So for example, you are reading about brachial plexus. Okay, so you write down the questions. What are the roots or the origins of the brachial plexus? What are the functions of the divisions? What are the terminal branches? What is the destination of the median nerve? What are the branches of the median nerve? So whilst you are reading, instead of rewriting notes, you are writing down questions. In this activity, your brain is analyzing, is thinking about what you are reading, and thinking builds understanding. Principle number 3, break and recall. So after your deep learning, take a break, 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Go for a walk, drink water, stretch your legs, stretch yourself. All right. So let's assume you read for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. You take 5 minutes break. And then when you return, so the principle is break and recall. When you return, close your book. And there are several ways you can do this. You can try to answer the questions that you wrote down from memory. You are trying to push your memory to remember. And that process is what will build understanding and long-term memory. So you can answer the questions, or you can try to explain to your friend. You explain it out loud or summarize everything you've learned. Imagine using the 7R anatomy map to explain to your friend everything you've read. Another option will be to also take an exercise book, and this time around you are writing everything you can remember from what you read. All right. So instead of writing the notes whilst you are reading, write questions. That's the second principle. Then third principle is take a break, go for a walk, and then come back to your book. When you come, you close the book, and then you do the 3 things I've suggested. This is called active recall, and it is the most powerful learning technique. Principle number 4, use the 7R anatomy map. A great way to organize what you are learning is to use the 7R anatomy map. So instead of memorizing random facts, you are organizing the topic into a map. If you have not watched my video on how to organize anatomy into a map, head over and watch my video on the 7R anatomy map. It is a technique that will help you to organize any topic in a way that your brain can understand and recall. You can also download the 7R anatomy map worksheet from the description of that video and use it whenever you are studying. Principle number 5. And this is the most important one, the most powerful one. The final and most important step is this: do questions. Past questions, clinical cases, MCQs, short answers. The process of quizzing yourself or testing yourself or trying to answer questions is very powerful because questions force your brain to retrieve information. And that is how you build long-term memory. Not rereading your notes, not highlighting textbooks, not rewriting the textbook, but retrieval and answering questions. Retrieval builds memory. So, if you feel like you learn anatomy and forget everything, this change in strategy will transform your learning. It saddens me to see students lose confidence, doubt themselves, and question their abilities. You are not a bad student. You were just never taught how to learn. Anatomy is not about memorizing. Anatomy is about understanding, organizing, and recalling for application. And when you learn how to do that, anatomy no longer feels overwhelming and you start to feel confident. I will be making more videos where I break down anatomy into simple, clear explanations. So subscribe to the channel and let's make anatomy simple, visual, and unforgettable.